lost my shoes. In this mind, you will see who you're really gonna be. Hollowed out, filled with sin, keeping watch, I don't pretend. Feelings throw you to the ground, pick it up and spin around. Stay true, I don't wanna be in this room. Stay true, I don't wanna be in this room.
All right. Welcome to the Freakcast. If you didn't see that intro, it's very disappointing. It was really good. Let's watch it again here. Watch this. See if it'll replay. Oh, there it goes.
I'm somewhere lost
I
my
don't guess I have to do it again.
In this mind, you will see who you're really gonna. Stay true, I don't wanna be here in this room. Stay true, I don't wanna be here in this room.
All right. There we go. All right. Happy New Year. Happy New Year. I like that intro a lot. Had little fireworks and everything. So hopefully you guys have got some nice plans for the new year scheduled up. For us on New Year's Eve, we're just going to be hanging out here and getting ready. I think I told you guys that we have been preparing for these stem cell anniversary trips, and this is ours, and I'll be telling you more about that as we close out the night. But I want to get our guests on here in a minute. But for us, that's what we're doing. So we're getting ready to kind of get out of here and go to the mountains. That is the plan. So we'll see how that all works out. But welcome. Thank you for joining in tonight for the Freakcast. This is episode 4. And I wanted to show you, I can show you my dream board right there. Look at there, top left-hand corner. That's all the guests that I've got lined up coming on in the next month. And so these are going to be some pretty cool people we get to hang out with. And we're excited about them joining in with us. So whether you're watching us live or watching us on the replay, or if you're listening to us on Spotify or at fightlikeafreak.com, welcome. We're glad you're here. Very glad you're here. The Freakcast is an opportunity for us just to get people on here to talk about their journey, their story. We all believe that every story matters. And so we want to share the story because we believe that by people sharing stories that you can be encouraged, because maybe you'll hear something that you identify with, and maybe you identify with possibly the type of cancer that someone's been diagnosed with, or the type of situation that somebody's gone through, or the struggle that they've faced. And so those things can help you. And then if you know someone, then you can share that episode with your friends and family and maybe people that would be encouraged as well. I always talk about this passage. I need to put it up on the deal. I guess I could add it. But it is Revelation chapter 12, verse 11. And I love the verse because it says that they overcame the enemy or the beast by the power of the blood and the word of their testimony. And so all of us have a story, and we all have something that we can share with somebody. And that's the verse right there. Great passage. And so I encourage you to look that one up. Tonight, our guest is Mr. Albert Bennett. Let's bring him on here. Here he is right here.
Hey, Steve.
Here he is, ladies and gentlemen. Albert Bennett. I need to get me an applause deal. I actually have one, but I didn't think to put it on here.
Hey, man.
Tonight.
So is that Dawson singing in the intro music?
That is Dawson. Yep, that is my son, Dawson. And he goes by, this is him. He goes by Kids in a Daze. So that song, I love that song because it's I've told people it's about when he was staying in a garage apartment, really small place. And he wrote the song about just staying true to his vision and staying true to his purpose, when he's in a really tough situation. And so it's really a cool song. So yeah, that's Dawson, our second son. Pretty cool guy.
Awesome, man.
So Yeah. So, man, thanks for being on here tonight. Thanks for being a part of the Freakcast with us. And you are definitely a freak in a lot of a lot of ways. So we're going to talk about that. Albert and I guess we've known each other for, I don't know, man, what? I don't know,
A while,
a little while,
I'd say
5, 7, 8 years, something like that, somewhere in there.
7, yeah, 7 or 8, something like
I think
that.
really and we really got to know each other through well, North Forney. We stayed connected up there when I was working at the high school, and you were a goon dad. There was this program that we had at North Forney, and Albert was a volunteer. He's a mentor, and so I had gone through a situation where I was looking for a job, and there was a guy that had said, "Hey, I'll let you make some money selling roofs," and so this really got to know each other better. And so I told Albert and I were talking, and he said, "Well, what's he doing for you?" And I told him, and Albert's like, "No, why don't you come work for me, and you make a lot better living that with me than you would that way." So, do you remember that?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. That was not that.
Right.
It doesn't seem like that long ago.
I know it was, but it was. It was. Now that I think about it, it was like 6 years. That was like 6 years ago. So
Man,
you're right.
I just can't believe it's been a year since you had your stem cell
I know.
transplant.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been pretty nuts.
For me, that flew by.
Yeah, well, but I mean, think about you though, and we'll get to this in a second. But it's been what, over 2 years, right?
Yep.
And so, but yeah, it does fly by. It does seem like. But yeah, I just celebrated my 1 year anniversary, and Albert's been so encouraging and such a good source of just, encouragement to me over the past year because of what you went through, obviously. And so I will, anyway, I'm anxious to get to that, but I really appreciate you and just appreciate your view on things and just how you've encouraged me. Albert's always sending me things like videos and just things he finds that are good, whether they be health related or just encouragement or whatever. And so that means a lot to me. And thanks for picking me up and giving me an opportunity to have a career too.
Yeah.
Back in the day.
We were fortunate to get you at the time too. So it was good.
So that's kind of how we met. Now Albert's got his family. Let's talk about your family a little bit. So Albert is married. How long have you been married, Albert?
I'm on my 27th year, so 26 years.
26 years. And for you guys that are listening, I got a picture of Albert's family up. You guys that are watching, obviously, there's Albert. And introduce us to your family, Albert.
Well, first off, we thank God every day they look like their mom. So,
Me too.
And Blair is on the left side of the picture. She's my 24-year-old. Julie is on the middle. That's my wife. And then Bailey is my 21-year-old.
Awesome. Beautiful family, man.
They are.
Beautiful
They're awesome.
Family. All girls. You're the thorn among the roses.
Man, they trained me to keep the toilet seat up or down. I'm sorry.
That's right. And wipe it down when you're done. It's so weird to me how that guys today, and even, I mean, honestly, just wipe off the toilet, because, when guys go to the bathroom, it can, there's kind of it may go anywhere. And so, I don't know, guys just aren't trained to do that. And I don't know why. Even my own sons, I have to remind them at that point sometimes. So most of them do pretty good, but whatever. All right. Well, man, you got a beautiful family there. So, so let's talk a little bit about, kind of how this all went down. So I remember, cause we were obviously working for the same company, or I was working for you guys. Albert was one of the owners in the company. And I remember, like, when this all started, I'm trying to put the timeline down, but kind of begin to tell your story because it's an amazing story of just everything that you've been through is incredible. So kind of start at the beginning and tell us how it all went down.
So in 2021, so probably I've had headaches for a very long time. And I always thought they were just related to sinuses because I would get a sinus infection a couple times a year. And my voice right now is a little scratchy. I haven't been sick in 2 years, and this last week I got something with sinuses. I inhaled something I shouldn't have. But probably about August of 21, I began getting bad headaches. They were bad enough. It was only when I walked. So if I went to a store, I may have to stop 2 or 3 times before I could get to the door of the store. Or if we went to a restaurant, I would have to stop 2 or 3 times, and I would literally be laying over the hood of somebody's car, holding my forehead, trying to get into the restaurant because I knew as soon as I sat down, the headache would go away. And I never thought anything horrible was happening, even though that sounds horrible now that you look back at it. But
Right.
that happened that was August, September, and then October 14th. I also never had a headache when I was sleeping. And October 14th, I woke up with a headache, and I got up and I went into the kitchen and I began vomiting in my kitchen sink. And the reason I went into the kitchen is because we have a cabinet that has ibuprofen and Aleve and whatever else for pain medicine. And I was going to take a few of those. What I ended up doing is I grabbed 4 ibuprofen and 4 Aleve and took all 8 of them at the same time. My head was hurting
Oh,
that
wow.
bad. I was in that much pain. And I just wanted the edge knocked off of it. And I actually went back into the bedroom and told Julie what I just did. I said, you may have to call an ambulance. I just took all this medicine. And part of my story too starts 22 years ago. And it's not symptoms I had, but I have a daughter. My 21-year-old was born with hydrocephalus, and which is it's too much fluid in the brain, and she had to have a shunt installed, which is basically a valve system that releases the pressure off the brain when the fluid builds up. And she had that put in when she was 2 weeks old. So she's gone all the way through until she hit high. She was a senior in high school, and she had the device began to malfunction seriously, and she was in the children's hospital system, but she was turned 18, which means she was aging out of the system. And so we began searching for a neurosurgeon for an adult that we could take her to in the event she needed something. And so we already knew where to go for me. So my wife, when I told her, hey, you may have to call an ambulance, she got up and walked into the closet and came back out with her suitcase. She goes, we're going to the hospital right now. And she made me get up and go. And we went into the hospital. And
When was this? When was this
this
again?
this was on October 14th of 21.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Now we get to the hospital, and they get me in fairly quickly and get me into a CT to have a CT done. And normally when you have a scan done, the techs will come out and say, hey, get with your doctor. We got some good pictures. Get with your doctor. They're going to go over your scans with you. And these techs came out and they said, Mr. Bennett, you have a brain tumor. And they just told me. And I said, okay. And I said, do you have a neurosurgeon on staff that's already here? And we were at UT Southwestern, and they did. They had already called and had all that moving before they even told me about it. And well, what happened was the neurosurgeon at UT Southwestern found or decided through the scans that they could do his surgery, and but wouldn't do it. They made us wait 5 days because I took that medicine. And
Oh, wow.
so October 20th, I had the surgery. And they say that they got most of it. Just recently, they told me it was probably 95% or something like that. But even if they told me 100%, they the prognosis of this is that it comes back. So they really never say 100% because they think the way that they described it to us is that there's little granules of sand that they can't even see that are still in there just waiting to start to grow. And
And so the type of, and when they said the diagnosis that they gave you, how do you pronounce that again?
okay, so once they do the surgery, they send it to pathology, and it takes a little
Oh,
while.
okay, okay, gotcha.
But I was,
I get ahead of you.
but they made me stay there a little while, and they got the pathology back, and the type of cancer is oligodendroglioma, and it's
And
a
it's scrolling at the bottom, but it's impossible to, like, when I read it, I can't even,
yeah.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, because I got ahead of you, but so you had the surgery. They just they knew they had to get the tumor, or they had to get the tumor out.
Yeah.
That was the first thing, because that was what was causing the problems.
Right.
Okay. And so they did the surgery. Then they come to you and tell you, I'm just kind of recapping for myself, that they feel like they got most of it out, but they
Yeah.
weren't sure if they could get it out. But you stayed in the hospital while they sent it off to get
Yeah,
it tested, or the pathology.
I think I went in on the 14th. I was there 12 days, so I think I left on the 26th. I think that's how that worked. But so the surgery was on the 20th, and then they have you stay there just to monitor you a little bit afterwards. I think I was in ICU for a day or something, and then they just want to make sure, you're not going to start bleeding or something, I guess. And but yeah, so that's what it did, and it comes back. We'll call it an oligo. The oligo diagnosis. It could be a grade 2, which they don't even consider it cancerous at grade 2, but grade 3 is the highest grade. It's based on how fast the cells are replicating, and this one does not go to a grade 4. And that's another thing. The different cancers that are out there, when you go to a brain cancer, they don't put it in stages, they put it in grades for whatever reason. I don't even know, but they just call it grades.
I put stage earlier, and you were like, no, it's grades. So all brain cancer is
grades.
Is grades.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you run into somebody that has a glioblastoma or whatever, it's going to be graded somehow. Okay. And hopefully they got a really low one, because those can grow really fast. Some of them can. But
so what do you do? So I'm just sorry. Like, so you check in the hospital, and you had the surgery, and so you're there for 12 days. How many days was it before they came back with the report? And then, like, physically, where were you at, and all that kind of stuff? I mean, I know that's what a whirlwind, because you go from not knowing to all of a sudden you're having brain surgery.
Man, I'll tell you this. So the good thing about waiting 5 days is I had time to think and a lot of time to pray. And that's when I immediately just pray and ask Jesus to heal me. That's what I ask. Yeah. And as we go through this story a little bit, I think that's what's ultimately happened. Is I think I've been healed, but that's not what the prognosis is. And the doctors, I think they're limited to what the FDA tells them they can say. So once a diagnosis has been made, then they have to go with certain protocols. And in my case, they'll never use a word like remission. They'll never use that. It's terminal. This is what you're dying from. That's what they tell me. And after the surgery, my surgeon was awesome. I mean, this lady is just super positive and uplifting, and just it's somebody you enjoy just hanging out with, probably. But she said, Albert, you've got to go see an oncologist. And I said, okay, so can you recommend one? She referred me to, I guess, their top guy at UT Southwestern. And so we went there, and I actually had, when I go and see him, I actually visited 4 oncologists, and I primarily had 2 questions. We had a lot of questions, but primarily the 2 questions I wanted to know was, what's the prognosis? They all told me the mean makes it 5 years. So the average person makes it 5 years. And the second question I wanted to know is, what's protocol? And they told me it's chemo and radiation. And when they're telling me that, I'm asking, I asked them, I immediately tell them, I don't want to do chemo. Give me another option. And they said, there's not one. And I'll tell you this, the oncologists were probably, they all seemed very concerned and very caring. And um, I, I don't want it to sound like they were bad or anything like that, because they were not. As a matter of fact, every time when Julie was with me, I said, "Hey, I like this guy. If we're going this route, this is who I don't mind going with this guy." I even went down to MD Anderson and met with them, and it was basically the same story. The lady there told me, the oncologist there told me, I was just getting opinions from all these people. She told me, I told her I didn't want to do chemo, and she said, "Albert, you might get 7 years out of this, but if you don't do chemo, it's going to be half." And
Oh, wow.
I said, I just told her, I said, "Okay, thank you very much. You've given me all the information I need to make a decision. I like to go home with my wife and do that." And when we walked out, I told Julie that, I'm not going to come back here. It was the same chemo, the same treatment, everything. If we're going to do it, we'll do it in Dallas. We don't have to go down to Clear Lake on the other side of Houston to do that. And that's what my thought process was at that time. But man, I'll tell you this, they told me in the hospital, because, it's brain surgery. So, and they're removing part of the brain. I wanted to know about side effects and, how could I be possibly when I come out of here? And the surgeon said, "You're probably going to have a dull personality. That's a possibility." And I asked her, I said, "Is it possible I'll have like a paralysis?" She said, "That is possible." And my question was, well, is it also possible to retrain the brain to overcome that? She said, "Yes, it is possible." And I just like to know things are possible sometimes. But
Right.
but the weird thing about
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
the weird thing about the chemo, when they kept bringing up the chemo, I kept feeling when I didn't do a lot of research on that, and I didn't really know everything about it. I've heard stories about side effects and stuff, but I never looked into what they were telling me to do. But it was really like an aggravating feeling when they were telling me, "You have to do this." And the aggravation was, it was aggravating, and I just didn't want to do it. And so I went to 2 radiation oncologists and then 2 regular oncologists. And then I was referred to another lady that's a PhD naturopath doctor. I mean, she's a PhD doctor and not a medical doctor. And I wanted to hear what she had to say. And interesting, in her, when we got there, I paid her for an hour of her time. And when we got there, she began telling me, the first thing she said to me was, "Tell me what's going on." And I began telling her about the oncologists that I went to, all 4 of them. I said, "I really don't want to do chemo." And she said, "You don't really have to." She said, "But if you have," she goes, "you don't need to take any advice from anybody if you have unforgiveness you haven't dealt with." And and so she's the first time anybody's told me I didn't have to do chemo. And then she begins talking about unforgiveness. And since then, we've learned a lot about unforgiveness. And it's in a category of anger, of stress, of bitterness, of grudges, a negativity. All of that stuff is in that category of unforgiveness. And the strange thing is that it's something spiritual that can manifest physically in us and can prevent us from healing. And so I've talked to you many times about that. This is the naturopath PhD that we met with.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
All right. And then, from there, I had one more referral to another doctor. He was a DO. So he's an actual doctor, and I went to his office, and I walked in, and he asked me, what's going on, Albert? And I started off the same way I did with the naturopath, and he said, Albert, you don't have to do chemo, but do you know, you don't need to take. He said the exact same thing. You don't need to take advice from anybody if you have unforgiveness that you haven't dealt with. And
Really?
these two people don't even know each other. They didn't know each other, and they were saying the same thing.
So it's a DO and a naturopath, whatever, doctor, and so there's two different people, and so they say to you, you don't have to do chemotherapy, but you need to deal with unforgiveness. So both of these guys are telling, or both these doctors telling the same thing.
Yeah, and
that's crazy.
I kept talking to my wife about it, and I was like, I feel like I've gone through an inventory of people I have that I know that I've my whole life, and I don't feel like I'm holding grudges or that I haven't forgiven somebody for something they've done. I don't feel like I'm holding that at all.
Right.
But it didn't take very long to learn about all those other categories of anger, bitterness, all the stuff that we deal with daily. And it's just strangely how something like this occurs. And then you see that happen all the time. I've talked to you about it. I've talked to you about just different things going on in our lives that we have to deal with and kind of move on if we can.
Yeah, but how interesting is that though, that so you've been diagnosed with terminal because I can't say the whole word, brain cancer, right?
Yeah.
And for you guys that are watching too, just real quick, because when you were talking about the surgery a while ago, this is a picture of where the tumor was.
So the picture on the left is the tumor. That's the tumor.
Okay.
So it's real. That's what it was.
This is
the picture in the middle is the day after surgery.
Okay.
And the picture on the right is what my brain looks like right now.
Right. And so it's in your left front lobe, or
well, it's actually the right front lobe, and it's
right. Okay.
When you're looking at a picture like this, you got to imagine you're looking at it from my chin. So if I'm laying on my back and you're looking at my chin, that's how you're looking at my head. So that's the right front lobe on there.
So you're missing that part of. So they took the picture that shows your condition of your brain now. You're just missing that.
Yeah, it's just gone. It makes me think that maybe I had this tumor a really long time.
Yeah.
And we can look back at instances where we think, hey, maybe that caused that or whatever it is. But the nature of the disease is that it actually changes brain cells into cancer. So they're no longer really brain cells. They're just cancer. And so there's this, and the body encapsulates it, which makes it into a tumor, trying to get rid of it. And in this case, it got so big, it was creating massive amounts of pain. And that was my symptom. I think most brain cancer people have seizures, and they've got all kinds of things that happen. They'll have numbness in different parts of their body, and different things. They have lots of them. Mine was a headache that hurt really bad. And then, but I think what happened is because I had it so long, my body had already mapped around that area of my brain.
Wow, that's interesting. So you guys feel like you've had it for a long time, and that your brain was making provisions around the tumor that was there. So when they cut it out, then your brain had already adapted to some degree. Because honestly, for you guys that are watching a video, you can see the tumor, like how you explained it, and it's obviously a big section of your brain that's gone. But you really have. I've been around you since the whole situation took place, and honestly, I haven't noticed anything different. The way you communicate with me and that kind of thing. Yeah,
unfortunately, I didn't have deficiencies. I didn't have memory loss. I didn't lose any motor. I think that's why that's why I think it was there for a long time, is that my body had already mapped around it and compensated for it. So all they did is
Isn't that
remove the
crazy?
mass, and I haven't had a headache since, or
Yeah.
a headache like that. I haven't had one like that since. And
Yeah.
but
So back to that, and I
anyway,
didn't mean to jump. I knew we didn't talk about that, but like you were talking about how that both these doctors talked about unforgiveness and just how much anger and bitterness, grudges, all this kind of stuff can impact us physically. And so they're telling you that, and at the same time, they're telling you that this is terminal and all this kind of stuff, and you're having to navigate because there's a lot of, that's anybody that's told that. I mean, what did you? I mean, obviously you and Julie, and you're having to navigate this. I mean, how did that impact you as far as thoughts and feelings, and how did you approach that, and then kind of go into what you decided to do, I guess, because that's where it
yeah.
gets pretty interesting.
Well, we believe God is real. We believe
Right.
we believe we have a living God, and our God can heal. Our God can do anything. And um, recently, I heard somebody say, um, with the Holy Spirit, we have possibilities. And I know what the doctors say. They're trained to say that. Their books tell them that. The evidence tells them that. That's what it is. And that's what's going to happen. I know that. But I just, it's just, I don't believe it. I don't. And I feel like when they were mentioning chemo to me, that the aggravation I was feeling was probably the Holy Spirit making me feel that way. And I didn't know that at the time. It was months and months and months later that I realized what was probably happening at the time. I was still emotionally wrapped up in everything. I didn't see the goodness that was happening. But I never did chemo. I didn't do it. I did do radiation. I have a, hang on, let me show you something. This is how they do the radiation. I don't know if I've ever showed you this before. This is a mask that they make. You can see the nose there.
Right.
Fits right over. Well, what they do is they make you lay on a table, and your face fits in this, and they strap you to the table when they do the radiation, and it holds you in the exact same space every time. So
Oh
these
wow.
the radiation machine moves around doing the radiation on me. And once again, so I ultimately hired one of the oncologists. He was a radiation oncologist, and to do that. And they have side effects for that. I have a cousin that went through the same thing, and she lost all of her hair from about approximately her ears forward.
Yeah.
And I didn't have any of that. And I had some very light thinning on the edge up here, but it was, people kept telling me my hair was turning gray, and what was happening was some of the darker hair was falling out, and you could see the
Right.
gray a little better. But I didn't have that. And then my oncologist also told me that, or the radiation oncologist told me that I was going to get, I had to do 6 weeks of this. It was 28 sessions of it. And the oncologist told me that I was going to have extreme fatigue in the 5th and 6th weeks. And I never felt it. I didn't feel it at all. And there are some side effects to radiation, but I haven't experienced that. Whatever they say it is, I haven't experienced it. And even one day, so when you're scheduled for radiation, you go to the area they have it, and there's a waiting area, and it's all people just waiting to be on the machine next. And one lady about 3 chairs down from me, she leaned over and she said, "Hey, can I ask you a question?" I said, "Yeah." She goes, "Do you drive yourself here?" And because we see each other all the time. I said, "Yes, ma'am. I have to go to work after this." She goes, "Oh." I said, "Are you struggling with radiation?" She goes, "My husband is, and he was doing prostate radiation, and it was burning him pretty bad. I finally met him when he came out, and he was limping. You know, it was hurting him pretty good.
Yeah.
And I also learned that the radiation on the brain, they do less than they do on other parts of the body, just because it is the brain. But man, I don't know, man. So I didn't tell you about okay, I got to the last doctor I went to, which was the fifth doctor I went to, and he's the one that brought up unforgiveness also. But he also said to me, he goes, "Hey, Albert, do you know why they're wanting you to do chemo?" I said, "Maybe to kill cancer. I don't really know." And he said, "No." He goes, "It's because they think cancer is your problem." And I said, "Well, is that not my problem?" He said, "No, it's your immune system. Our immune systems are actually designed to fight this stuff off." And he said, as a matter of fact, everybody has pre-cancer cells in their body, and our bodies just fight them off, so they don't ever grow. You don't ever have symptoms because they don't grow. And I said, "Well, what's wrong with my immune system?" He said, "It's probably a toxin, and there's probably a toxin in you or some toxins that are suppressing the immune system." And so we began doing tests to find that out, and we found some heavy metals in me that are not supposed to be there. One of them is from the contrast from these scans, the gadolinium from those scans. But now we do chelation just to get rid of all that out of there. But also, the naturopath doctor that when she after she told me about unforgiveness, she sat down and began talking to me about nutrition. And I would say within the first 5 minutes, I interrupted her and I said, "Are you saying food can heal this?" She said, "Yes." And I said, "Really?" She goes, "Yeah." And I told my wife, I said, "This is what I want to do." I mean, immediately I told her that. And so I learned from her that nutrition was a big part of it. And then I learned from the other guy that it's the immune system that we really need to work on. And so when you say fight like a freak, I in my mind, I'm thinking that means build an immune system. That's the way I view that. And if I had all these symptoms, it would be deal with those too. You know, that's probably the way I would think about that. But I went home and got on the internet and began looking for what foods should I be eating. And I found a guy named Chris Wark on chrisbeatcancer.com. And I began watching the testimonials from his food protocol. And I didn't see any of them on brain cancer, but there was a lot of breast, a lot of prostate, which all these people have basically the same type of problem. It's an immune system problem. And and a lot, and even him, he said this year he's celebrating his 20th anniversary of not having cancer. Yeah. And and they gave him a terminal prognosis too. He had only a short period of time to live with colon cancer. And but anyway, I began following his protocol. And the first part of the protocol was to eat vegan for 90 days, which sounded difficult, but you go get a diagnosis that's not favorable, and you can do all kinds of things. But
and
it really wasn't that difficult.
Yeah, and in the comments here, I'm going to put it's chrisbeatscancer.com, right?
It's just chrisbeatcancer.com.
Yeah. chrisbeatcancer.com. And because that was honestly, that was it was a big deal to me, because when you begin to talk to me when I was diagnosed, and what was crazy was that, you know, I was diagnosed July of 22. You were diagnosed October of 21, right? So,
yeah.
So basically, whatever that is, August, September. So 10 months after your diagnosis, then I'm diagnosed. And what was great, and I know we'll get to this in a second, but you know, everybody's journey is different. And so whenever I was diagnosed, the first thing that I did was, in one of my conversations was with you, and you told me about Chris' work. And because when you get diagnosed, I mean, and this is one thing, like I know that you and Julie had to navigate this too. First of all, you're stunned by everything. You're like, okay, you just got to take a step back, and then you begin to think, okay, what path am I going to take? Which is where you were, and obviously, although with you, the path, there wasn't really a choice. That thing had to come out. So because
Yeah.
you were already in that shape, and so you had to immediately get the surgery. So you're getting surgery and having brain surgery, which is definitely a different path um, than I would have taken, but because of a different diagnosis and what you had. But I will say this: that when you brought up Chris' work, I got the book, but I remember being in the fruit and vegetable section at Kroger one day and just trying to figure out what to do, because I just feel like I was on overload a little bit. And as you began to kind of share that with me, the juice and all that, which I know you'll get to in a second, but all that made a difference. And I think anyone listening or watching, this story that you're sharing, um, it's it's just powerful, because here you are with a diagnosis of terminal brain cancer. They're saying, maybe 5 years. And then you just begin to attack this thing. And okay. So you chose not to do chemo, but you did radiation because you felt like that
Yeah.
was a better, the better place to go. And then you kind of begin to move toward this health and wellness direction in lieu of doing the chemo.
Yeah.
And I think, you've always told me, you're like, well, you guys are saying I'm terminal anyway. So, and I think, didn't they tell you, like, if you asked them the question, you say, okay, so if I do the chemo, does that extend my life any? And then they were like, no. Am I saying that right?
Yeah. That's the prognosis. The prognosis is based on you doing with their protocol.
Right.
And so, yeah, that's what it is. And I get it, man. I get the data says that's the best thing to do based on the data they have. I get that. But I just deep down felt like there was another way. But I'll tell you
Yeah.
this, man. My doctor I go to now, I don't have an oncologist. I meet with my surgeon to look at scans every 3 months. I've got another one in February, and he doesn't really. We don't really talk about cancer that much. We just talk about the general health, how you're feeling, and the immune system. I mean, that's really what it is. But
Right.
anyway, so Chris Work's protocol was the start off eating vegan, it's all raw fruits and vegetables. And I learned after a couple of weeks of that I needed more, and I started adding cooked rice and beans to it to get more food in me. But also it was juicing, like you just talked about. And the interesting thing, Chris Work has a lot of different theories that he uses that are a lot of other doctors already had all the data together on. But um, the main thing that I began focusing on was removing toxins out of my life, which means we changed our laundry soap, dishwashing. My wife got her shampoo or soap or toothpaste, um, everything. Everything's gone, and we now have less toxic choices. And
Yeah.
and then I don't think you can get every toxin out, but we filter our water. We do things like that to remove as much out of it as we can. And then on the vegetable side, we were trying to do all organic as well, and which is supposedly that no pesticides and that kind of stuff in them. We began washing our vegetables with hydrogen peroxide, and just to get anything off of it, any kind of virus, anything that was in it, we'd get them off. And but the other part of his, the vegan part was the juicing. And in March 15th of 22, I began juicing, and I drank 64 ounces of vegetable juice every day. And I did that. And I think I was supposed to do it for 90 days, but I did it for a whole year. And so March of this year, I can still say that for a couple hours. Um, I had juiced over 3,000 pounds of carrots, and which, to think of that, you're just doing it a few at a time, but it adds up over time. And but that was really just a critical part of my life through that part.
I'm convinced that, I mean, in my journey, and that's why I've kind of, I've talked about this. That's something that, as I go into the new year, that I really want to get back into my life. I didn't do 64 ounces. I was doing half of that every day. Well, actually, no, I was doing 3. So I was doing 36 ounces a day, because I was doing 3 12-ounce, I think, jars.
Okay.
But because it's a process, and it takes, with the carrots, and I actually put a link in the comments of a video just how to make the juice. But it's carrots, beets, and celery. And for me, I use ginger. Did you use turmeric?
I use turmeric. Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't
With
want
black
me to use
pepper.
turmeric. Yeah.
Yeah, there was something different about your diagnosis that they didn't want you to use it.
Yeah,
I remember that.
but they were good with ginger. So, but I mean, I'm convinced that made a huge difference during my treatment and everything, because, what I appreciate about, and this is something that we can continue to talk about, because with you, Albert, you made a decision. This is what I've got to do, and you set that path out. You and Julie and your family made that decision, and you stuck to it, and you still have, because you kind of looked at it from the standpoint, the way I understood it was, this is what I feel like God wants me to do, number one, and number two, as a family, this is the direction we're going to go, and then when I got diagnosed, you have all these thoughts, and of course with multiple myeloma now they have immunotherapy, which is a different form of treatment, which is what we went through, and then the stem cell transplant, which is kind of, you had brain surgery to remove it, but what I have is you can't remove it. You got to figure out how to get it out of there and reboot your system, hopefully, where that you can get it, get rid of it. But I do believe still to this day that diet and health and wellness and physical, as well as mental, and what you talked about earlier, unforgiveness and stress and worry and fear and doubt, all that stuff stores up in our bodies, and we hold it inside. And that's why, script, with God, I mean, that was a big thing. Jesus was that love the Lord your God and love your neighbors yourself. And then he's had several chapters of just so many teachings about the certain things we're talking about. But I just feel like that was something that was very important, and it was good for me to have that part of your journey and your story in my life, because it made a big difference. And I'm grateful for that. And it's something that, now that I know about it, right? And so it's something I know about. And if I'm not doing it, I know what it can do for me and how I need to get back into that system of all that. But so you did this for a whole year, and your diet, everything, you were pretty strict on all of that for the complete year, from March of 22 to March of 23, right?
Yeah. And we still eat healthy.
Yeah.
I'm just not as strict as I was. And I probably need to be. I probably do. Now, I remember a while ago you brought up going into Kroger and being overwhelmed. I remember that when you did that. Do you remember what I did?
Oh,
I showed up at your house with all the vegetables you needed to juice.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
It's like, here, we'll take the guesswork out. Just do it.
Yeah, and what I appreciated about it, and I think anybody listening or watching this can, whatever you're facing, what I appreciated about the way that you and I had communicated was that you were respectful, I guess is the word I'm looking for, of saying, listen, I'm not going to tell you what to do,
Yeah.
because what you have is different than what I have. But I am telling you, there are some things I feel like will be helpful. And, and you kept saying that over and over again. And then once I made the decision to do, which I was kind of in the same situation, not the same situation, but they wanted to attack mine quickly as well, and that was so that it wasn't long. And of course I did the MD Anderson thing too. And they were like, we need, tens of thousands of dollars just to see you. And I'm like, well, I can't do that. And then, I had people in Arkansas, but I was kind of, I wasn't kind of, I was just like you. I think I came to the place where I just had peace, and and my wife and I both had peace, and we just felt like that this is where God was leading us, and the journey that the Lord was leading us on. And that's the direction that we began to go. And there were similarities as far as diet and health and wellness and the things that we were doing. And still, like you said, well, even as I'm talking about it, I'm thinking about how I need to, I want to reboot some of that going into the new year. But you were respectful, and I heard you do this with other people too. And I try to do the same thing, is that every journey's different, and everybody makes their decisions based upon what they feel like is best for them at the time. And that's all we can do. Once we've prayed about it and we make those decisions, we move forward. But I mean, I know even in your situation though, when you're telling these doctors, because I've heard you talk about this, that you're like, I'm not doing the chemo. This is what I'm doing. I'll do the radiation, but I'm not doing the chemo. And they weren't
Yeah.
too happy about that.
No, they think you're crazy. I think they never said that, but I mean, they kind of did. That the lady at MD told me that if I didn't do it, it was going to, my prognosis is this, but if I didn't do the chemo, it was going to be half.
Yeah.
I think what it is that I just got to keep in mind that there's been a lot of people that have gone through a lot of treatments that have hurt them, and they don't live. They end up dying. But I will say this: I've seen people do chemo and they don't have cancer now. I've seen it. And
Yeah.
so God can heal. Jesus can heal in a lot of different ways. He does in the Bible. It shows different ways of him healing. And the number one way he heals is he touches people. He touches them when he heals them. He usually will. He already knows what we need, but he would ask, what is it that you want from me? And they'll tell him, I want to be healed, and he'll touch them. And I just imagine him reach up and touch their shoulder, and he says, you're healed, be on your way or whatever. And they move on. But there's also examples of him healing. And I need to look up the scripture, the verses on these, but there's one of them where the crippled guy was laying at the water area. He was laying on a mat. He'd been there for 20 years or something. And Jesus came there one day, and he asked him what he wanted. And he said he wanted to be healed. And Jesus told him to pick up his mat and walk. He's healed. And it doesn't say he touched him in that one.
Right.
And there's another example of I believe it's a Roman centurion walks up to him to tell him that he has a servant at home that's sick. And Jesus tells him, because of your faith, your servant's healed. Go home and see him. And so he never even saw the person, and it wasn't even that person's faith. It was somebody else's faith that healed him. And so there's many different ways. And so, chemo can do it, I guess. I mean, I don't know. It's not up to me. And I just feel like for me, I was strongly urged not to do it. And so, that's it. My doctors even told me that if I felt like I ever needed to do that, he would walk with me through it. But I'm not there at all. I'm not even close to that. And but yeah, another thing is, so a year ago you were doing stem cells. So it was just a few months before that. Um, you remember the feeling when you got diagnosed, right? The you're like, oh no, not right now, not in the middle of all this. I've got kids getting married. I got all kinds of stuff going on, and there's a moment of fear that hits. And you probably have this happen, especially with having this podcast thing, that people come to you and ask you questions about cancer. They do that with me all the time, and a lot of the times they just got diagnosed, and so when they're asking, that you can see the fear in their eyes, on their face. And I always tell them, look, the way you feel right now is not how you're going to feel in 2 weeks. That you will
Right.
get a better grasp on all this stuff in just a few weeks. So just remember that. And that's kind of where we are. I think you are, and I am right now, is that we feel like we have a better grasp on this right now. And
Yeah, I agree.
and something
And I think
special is happening. Like there's something really special happening. And I've got, I know a lot of people. I've even had friends that have had cancer and passed away in the last year. I've had it in the last 2 years. I've seen it happen. And,
yeah.
but there's something different happening here. I don't even ask why anymore, because, I feel like that why is answered all the time. You and I have talked about these crazy moments we have. And, you remember the job site we were on, and, this guy starts telling us about his brother had cancer, and I
Yeah.
asked him what kind of cancer, and he doesn't remember the name. His first language was Spanish. He was having a hard time, and I said, "Well, what's wrong with him?" And he started telling about his back was hurting and something else was hurting, and you were standing right there next to me. Those were symptoms you had, and I told him, I said, "Man, I have a friend that had the same symptoms, and he was diagnosed with multiple myeloma." He goes, "That's what it is." And it's just cool moments like that we get to, tell people that it's possible to be okay. That you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
It's possible. And
Well, and I like what you told people, or what you tell people. Like, when you get that first diagnosis, I remember you saying the same thing to me. It's like, and you even said, "Look, you're not going to die today.
yeah,
That's not going to happen."
yeah,
But it's gonna, as scary as it is right now, as uncertain as it is right now. Um, in a few weeks, you'll begin to start to see a plan, and you'll have a path, and you'll begin to look forward toward that, and it's going to be um, choices that you're going to make. And I think everybody listening and watching this deals we're sharing out, and I love it because it's something that I think you're able to see both sides of the coin, the medical side and the holistic side. um,
yeah,
and you said earlier, you've seen people, like I have too, like there's certain forms of, they'll tell you there's certain forms of breast cancer that, these certain medicines are going to take them out. It's going to work. It works. I don't want to throw a percentage out there. I think one of the ones we talked about was like 90 something percent of the time, and they've just kind of dialed it in at that point, I guess. But nonetheless, it's still poison, and it's still harsh, and it's still devastating, and it's still hard, and nothing's guaranteed, because, like you said earlier, you have friends that have died recently from cancer, and I have stories of the same kind of situations, and I think that's where it comes down to the fact that, um, like you said earlier, is that your faith and what you believe and how you approach it is a huge part of what of your treatment and your direction and your mental state, your spiritual well-being, your family, your emotionals, all that kind of stuff plays into it as well. And I think it's just good to hear you talk about it, because you you came at it from a different perspective, and here you are over 2 years later. You know, and when you go to the doctors, I mean, now what do they say to you? I mean, is it like, because I mean, it's because you still have to combat that, but it's like you said, well, you just believe that you're healed, and
Well, I don't discuss that with them anymore. As a matter of fact, I don't want to go. I don't want to have any more
right,
scans. I don't want to do any of that. But
yeah,
my wife has convinced me that it might be very important that I keep doing that. And because if this really did work, they need to know that. And
agreed,
and so I don't argue with them. I'm not condescending to them. I don't speak to them like I know more. I do. I mean, but when it comes to making decisions, I'm very firm. And because ultimately we make the decisions, they don't. They're making recommendations, and they have to recommend what the FDA tells them. They have to. And but we choose. And for example, a question people might have is, why did you do radiation? Why would you do that? Well, the radiation oncologists, they really, all the oncologists really hard sold on doing the chemo. I mean, they did. Even my surgeon's office, they really have encouraged me to do that, and not negatively or anything, but they that's just the solution they have. That's it.
right,
And uh, and I forgot what I was going to say, but oh, one of the questions they might have is, why did I do the radiation? Right. So it is, but the radiation oncologist told, because I was asking him too, why do people do radiation? What's so important about that? And he said, Albert, they can go in there and cut it out, but it's kind of like dealing with raw chicken. Once you touch it, it's all over everything, but you can't see it. And so it's contaminated. There he is. This is going to help decontaminate the area. And so I thought that it was worth the risk of the side effects to go ahead and let them decontaminate it, and do that. So that's why I did that. And
yeah,
there are some people that, it's heat. You can't. To me, you could, when they did the radiation, you couldn't feel anything. It was like getting an X-ray or something. You just go in and do it, and you leave. Now it would take about 20 minutes because this machine had to rotate around your head and do it from all different angles. But but that's it. So that's why I did that.
yeah, yeah. So, but like, where are you at now? I guess, you know, for me, it's like, um, you don't really have a I mean, you don't really have a prognosis. It's just like, I mean, other than what they told you initially, and I know that,
Yeah.
you know, like Julie said, it's a good idea to go ahead and get the scans. And I think, like you said, the reason is so that they can see that this is working, the direction that you're going is working, and they can have that. But um, you and I have talked about this, and I wanted you to talk about it a little bit too. Just the balance between, because people listening to this, um, you know, and I've said this a bunch of times. I don't have answers, you know, to why things happen. You know, I just have to navigate the circumstances of whatever it is that we're facing, whether it be individually or whatever. But you know, I think tell us like, okay, where are you at right now, and then directionally, you know, where you're going, and someone that's listening or watching this tonight or at some point down the road that, you know, is having to make these decisions. How would you counsel them? What would you tell them based upon your experience and based upon their situation, which we wouldn't know what their situation is, but it was really good for me to hear you do that, or you know, talk to me about that. And I think that you do that really well. I'd love for you to be able to kind of share that with everybody. Does that make
I
sense?
think, yeah, yeah. I don't. So I don't have anxiety going and getting scans. I don't, that doesn't, I don't feel that at all. As a matter of fact, on scan days, I go eat a donut. I just, it's just, I just want to defy everything that has to do with this. And I think that if you just got diagnosed, or if you know someone that has, it's difficult for that person to hear messages like this, because they're out listening to the doctors and they don't want to do it wrong. So their fear is, if I do something other than my doctor says, then this might keep growing and hurt me. That's what their fear is. What my focus is not on cancer or really fighting cancer. It's building an immune system. So it's to detox everything and to dump tons of nutrients into my body. And so, and I'm learning new nutrients all the time. I sent you a link to one the other day that I just started doing.
Yeah. Right.
And as long as it's natural stuff, it's food, and it's not toxic. So my doctor I go to now, he's more of an integrated doctor. He's not a holistic doctor. He's a integrated. So I would say he's more of a non-toxic doctor. His approach is non-toxic. For example, well, anyway, that's what I would tell people, is if you can focus on detoxing and dumping nutrients into your body, that's what that would be. So
you have an explosion going off behind you.
Hey man, my neighborhood's outside the city limits, and
No, I think somebody just wished you. Well, you're on your phone. I think somebody wished you Happy New Year, and you know how the iPhone does all the explosions.
Oh, that's okay.
So, yeah, so there's fireworks going off behind your head. For you guys that are listening, it was like we could see the fireworks. When you say integrated doctor, though, explain that to people so they know what that means.
He believes in what will work. So that's really what integrated means, is that it's okay for medicine and it's okay for natural and non-toxic. Right. And so it's all of that. He's not, my doctor, for example, is not anti-chemo. He's not. He's pro what will work. And he's not an oncologist. So I don't think technically he's treating cancer. He's treating immune systems is probably the way he positions himself.
Yeah.
But that's it. And then, man, I get so excited when I hear, so here's another thing I learned probably a year and a half ago, because people just kept coming up to me with cancer, and I was new at all this. And, is that we have got to be prepared for them. And, because cancer's not going away. It's actually going to get worse. Right. Because of the toxins that are in our food supply and our environment. It's everywhere. It's hard to get away from it. The air, I mean, it's everywhere. And I get excited when, I had another friend of mine that had a diagnosis, and, day one, they began eating right and doing all that stuff. And they also did not really want to go with the traditional treatments of radiation and chemo. Later on, they found out they had to, but they immediately went into lifestyle change so that the body could be healthy, and her body, I think, is doing well. But I just, that's what I think the main thing is that if you can get, all that juicing and everything helps detox too. It does. Right. It gets a lot of toxins out of you doing that.
I agree 100%.
And I just think if somebody's, and that stuff doesn't just apply to cancer patients.
Exactly.
That applies to people with autoimmune problems. I'm not a scientist or a doctor, but people with like MS and that nerve issues and all that stuff, that applies to them as well. It just allows the body
right. Yeah, it's not hurting anybody. It's going to help anything. I mean, any kind of holistic you do like that, as far, I say holistic, but
Yeah.
whether it's the juice formula that, you do, or if someone got the book, Chris Work Beats Cancer, I mean, um, any of that diet stuff is going to be good. And I think there's so many things out there that people, whether it's the latest fad, latest trend, or whatever the case may be. It's just like you said, like for us, we get pasture raised eggs. We try to eat, um, as organic as much as possible. Like I've cut out a lot of cheese out of my diet and hardly ever eat cheese, just simply because. And I think when I started this journey, I was given a list of supplements that will be helpful for me, and so I've kept those supplements throughout. I mean, I took them this morning along with everything, the other things that I take, and it is integrated. It is exactly what you said. It's like, because the same doctor that you're talking about is a doctor that kind of put me on this path and told me the things that would be helpful for me given my condition, and then taking vitamins that are good vitamins and all that kind of stuff. None of that's going to hurt anybody. And for people that have faced a diagnosis like you, or like me, or whatever the case may be, it's that it comes back to making those choices to just to get healthy. So like you said, I mean, I think you could pick anything, whatever illness or disease or whatever. And there may be a regimen of supplements that would be better for them that, like for me, it wasn't good for me to take turmeric, but it was good for me to take ginger. And so that worked. But
And that was based on
anyway,
your doctor's recommendations, right?
it was. I mean, and that, and we were like, okay. I mean, but I took what my doctor said, and I talked to the other doctor about it, and I said, hey, he says this, and he was like, okay, then that works. And so I think it's just asking a lot of questions and trying to find the path that is best for you. And I think I know both of us believe that for us to find that path, that we had a lot of people praying for us, and we prayed, and we just determined what would be best for us. And that's what we did and what we're doing now. And, there's no guarantees, but faith is a big part of it, and it's
Man,
it
so
makes a difference.
here there is a guarantee. The guarantee is if it works, we live. And the other
That's true.
guarantee, the other
That's right.
guarantee, the other guarantee is because of Jesus, if we die, we go to heaven. And so I guess as a Christian, I'm
That's a good way to put it. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
I can't lose. Now, my
Right.
family emotionally would. It would be an emotional mess that they would have to deal with. But ultimately, I'd be in a much better place, and they know that. And we've had close friends pass away and family members pass away in the last couple years, and ultimately, they're all in a much better place. And it's
Right.
sad, and grief is real, and it's tough, but that's that is a guarantee. And
Yeah.
we need to, I think we can move forward boldly knowing that.
Right.
I feel like I can
That's
anyway.
a good point. That's a good point.
And in the meantime, we got a lot of people we're going to have to help a lot, and they're going to keep coming. And that's what most people, when they come up to me, is they want to know, what am I doing? What am I doing? And I have to start off every conversation by telling them, I started when I was in the hospital and I prayed and asked Jesus to heal me. I mean, that's really where it started. And I encourage people, if they're looking at this because they have other people they know or whatever, is that's where you can start. Even if you don't believe, you can still ask him that. You still can. And that's where I encourage people to start.
And everybody that I've talked to so far, and as I look at my list of people up there that I will be talking to, that's the one thing that every one of them is going to, where it all starts is you look, once you get this diagnosis, look in the mirror. What do I believe? because, it's like when I said there's no guarantee and you fire, well, no, there is a guarantee. The guarantee is that, if it works, then you get better. And if it don't, then you go to heaven. And either way, it's good. And so I think that's the first place that all of us, and none of us, not everybody's ready to, I want to live. I want to enjoy my family. I believe there's things. Now, when you do get a diagnosis like this, it kind of ramps up your intentionality, like this podcast, and like things that I feel like that I'm supposed to do. And you and I've had this conversation as well. That you want to, every conversation matters. Every opportunity that you have is important. Seek forgiveness, give forgiveness, let go of bitterness and anger and frustration. And, I know and I still know families that have got, even at Christmas, they, don't even talk to each other. And there's nothing healthy about that. And so I believe what I love about your story, Albert, and what I love about how that it's helped me is that you kind of, the whole picture, the whole picture of, okay, I was diagnosed with this. And then you have these doctors telling you, look, let go of grudges and bitterness and unforgiveness and anger and all this stuff that stores up in your body and causes, work on that. And the way you work on that is, through faith and through scripture and through having conversations and prayer. And I could keep going. And then the other component of it is that get your body healthier. There's nothing wrong with that. That's going to help everybody. Not a person listening to this or watching this, for 2024, what a great direction to go. Look, I'm going to get healthy, and I'm going to figure out what supplements I need to take and that kind of stuff. So then the physical side of it, and then the medical side of it. You were like, radiation was what I needed. I feel like I needed to do that, so I did that, and I went and then you get a donut every time, just to kind of, give the what up yours kind of thing, but you know what I'm saying? That I appreciate the way, and I hope that everybody listening or watching will realize that, so often we try to put ourselves into we feel like we have to do certain things a certain way, but it's this big picture of just kind of seeking. And, it's like Jesus said, if you seek me, you'll find me, if you seek me with all your heart. And I think, the answers, and there are answers, and sometimes we don't know exactly what they are, but we move toward what we feel like is the best direction to go. And so, Albert, I really appreciate, because you have a type of cancer that nobody can pronounce anyway, and except you. He said it took you weeks to figure out how to pronounce it in the first place.
Yeah.
And you have a type of diagnosis that, is terminal, quote unquote, but in the approaching it, you just were like, you know what? You kept working, you kept doing what was in front of you. And I think that makes a difference. And I believe mentally it makes a difference, because any of us can lay down and give up and quit. And that, whether we're sick or not, but why do we do that? That's where it comes down to what you said at the beginning about emotions and feelings and whatever it may be. There's something wrong. We all have a disease. We all have a sickness, and that disease is sin. And it's we're contaminated by it. Some of us have, something else physically going on, but unless we deal with that root cause, that root issue in our life, and begin to work out from there, honestly and authentically, we're not going to get very far. And I had a conversation with a guy today, that we've been friends for, I guess 13 years now. And he's a worship leader. And we did a lot of camps and stuff together. And we had the best conversation just about just life and the past and walking through things. And it's healthy. It's not fake. It's authentic. It's true. And man, it makes a difference. And so anyway, I really appreciate the way you've handled things, honestly, and the way that you've helped me. And because I've been able to turn around and take that same information and help somebody else. And
man,
so
I just want to add one more thing. So I don't know if we're wrapping. I don't know what's going on here, but another thing I've learned through this, we've had so many good things happen through this process.
Mm-hmm.
And just good thing after good thing. I can't go over all of them, but what I've learned is that in some of our toughest trials, we get so emotionally wrapped up in them that we can't see the good things that God's really working on us through.
That's good. Yeah.
And sometimes it's weeks or months later that we look back and see that the Holy Spirit was urging me not to do chemo.
Mm-hmm.
There's many of them, but also not just in my experiences, but experiences of other people I have that have just been dealing with life situations that as a believer, I have to believe that God's plan is good. No matter what it is or what I
Yeah.
see, it's still, there's good happening there somehow. And I think that he's transforming us into whatever he wants us to be. And I think that, just sometimes it takes a minute to get through the emotions of what's happening to realize, oh, this needed to happen in order for this to happen.
Yeah, that's
And,
good.
and,
That's
and,
true.
and, you needed to go through this in order to start reaching out to people like you are right now. And
Right. Right.
we all have that. And there's something good in there too. And I just feel bad for the people that are suffering, like the pain, that have pain and have deficiencies going on. Those are the real freaks, man. That's what I believe.
Yeah.
But
I'm gonna have a lady on here in next month. Her name is Tracy, and she's been battling cancer, and I think it started out as breast cancer, and it's just kind of evolved. But for 9 years, um, and she's just been, like you said, she is a freak. I mean, in a good way. But her attitude is great. Her faith is great. She plays with her grandkids. She just has got such a great attitude and a great spirit and a strong faith and a strong family of faith around her that makes such a difference. And it's just like you just said. There's so much out there, and if we and all of us have a purpose, a mission, something that we've been called to do, and we just live in a world that will press us into a mold that we were never intended to be in. And I tell people all the time, I'm thankful for who I was becoming before I was diagnosed with cancer. Thankful for the mentors I had. I'm thankful for my wife, Donna, who challenged me. I'm thankful for so many things that were happening before I ever got diagnosed. But then when you get this, it's like, you know, and you and I've talked about it. You hear people say, well, I'm grateful. And I've learned to be grateful. I'm not grateful. I don't believe God did this to me. I don't believe God gave us this. This is a part of living in this fallen world. But in the middle of it, He is definitely able to take our stories and take whatever we're facing and whatever we go through, and we can use it to, to honor Him and to help other people. And so I'm always real careful. I'm always real careful about saying, well, God's got a plan and God's going to do great things through you. And that's true. That's absolutely true. But every one of us have to find that place in our life. We can't, it's it's just part of our journey, part of our story.
man, I think it's just easy for us to feel sorry for ourselves and become bitter and
Yeah,
become
agreed. That's right.
a recluse and to lose gratitude. And that's why I mean, and I understand what you're saying about the plan, but I just believe there's something good happening, and I don't
No, yeah, I agree with that.
And
I agree with that
it
100%. Yeah.
appears, and every once in a while I see it, like I'll see glimpses of it everywhere. And
Well, my point is that you've come to that place though, right? It's
yeah,
like as
yeah,
and you definitely begin to start looking for it because you can see the good in it and you can
yeah,
see what God's doing. And but it's beginning to make, like you said at the beginning, it's making that choice, that very first initial choice. What do I believe? And then it works out from there.
I think another thing that we have to do is, I think we got to kind of decide that we are responsible for some of this too. Like
That's
we've
good.
lived a
Yeah, I
life a
agree.
certain way, and it's maybe, I don't know, I wouldn't say 100% our fault, but it's still our fault, and we need to own that and approach it that way. That this is, if this is our mistake, then we need to figure out how to get through it. And
Yeah.
and there's just a lot of bad lifestyle decisions that, foods and
Mm-hmm.
stuff that we've done our whole lives, and that I have
Yeah.
anyway. And
Yeah, me too.
you know, there's a lot of it that's not my fault too. But I'm not gonna. I'm not. That's one of those things where you got to let it go and just let's get after this, whatever that is,
Yeah.
whatever that looks like, and continue living and being thankful. So
That's something Chris Work says too. You have to, and I've heard that multiple occasions where you have multiple occasions where on the fact, that you didn't eat right, that you put stuff in your body that wasn't, sugar is a cancer feeder, and I'm eating way too much sugar right now, and I know that. And so I can't, so those, like you said, that's my choice. And that's a bad choice,
yeah,
and that's, like you said, that's my fault. But we don't want to, you know, and like you said too, there is external things that cause things, but then we have responsibility in the middle of it as well. And so that's a ownership thing, which is sometimes difficult for us to do. So anyway, man, this has been awesome. We should do this again and have you back on and and continue our conversation. I just love
when
and
are you guys
appreciate you
leaving for
very
your
much,
trip?
man. We're leaving tomorrow, so
Oh
um,
man,
yeah, we're excited. So we're heading that way. So it's
is there a lot of
it's
snow? Is there a lot of snow up there right now?
yes, yeah, apparently there is, and I think for me being in the hospital at this exact time on this exact night, my family came in to be with me on New Year's Eve. My sister, my brother-in-law, and my nieces. Um, and it's like a dream. I mean, I know you can probably say the same thing, right? It's like it's just it happened, but it's like time has passed so fast since then. This year's just blown by,
Yeah,
and it's I'm sure you could probably say that last 2 years have flown by for you. I guess maybe I don't know, but
they have.
yeah, it's like does life just become more urgent? You know what I'm saying? It's like I want to live this thing. I want to I want to soak it up. I want to get. I don't know. I mean, maybe. I mean, time flies anyway, but still. But yeah, we're looking forward to it, and just appreciate your prayers and praying for you guys, and um, man, sometimes we do things that are stretches for us, but they're the right things to do, and so just go for it, and even if it's misunderstood, and I know that people looked in your life and they were like, well, I think you should be doing this, and they're like, I gotta do what I gotta do, you know. I was
Yeah,
talking
they
to a
have.
friend of mine this past week, yesterday actually, and I was talking about being, how people judge us, um, and or how we can be judged or whatever, or feel judged. And I was like, and I said, man, I feel like people look at the situation. And I think you could say the same thing. Like people looked at your situation when you said, I'm not doing cancer. And there's all these different people that have these opinions about it. And at the end of the day, it's judgment, of some sort. And Mark, the guy I was talking to, he's like, I said, is that true? He said, oh yeah, 100%. They're judging you. and he said, so what? You got to do what you feel like's best. And that's another thing I appreciate about you, Albert, because it's just like you feel the same way. It's like, well, all right, whatever. I'm gonna keep doing what I feel like best for me. So
It's one of those weird things. I don't know anybody else that's gone through this, so
I know. I
gotta
don't.
go.
I've never heard of it before in my life. And you.
Yeah, so brain cancer is very rare, and this diagnosis is one of the. It makes up about 5% of all the brain cancers, so it's even more rare.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah. Well, man, I appreciate you. Love you. Thanks for doing this with me
man.
tonight and just sharing your story and just sharing how you have gotten. I think if people have questions, I mean, obviously, message us or whatever. We'd love to connect. And Albert's always available. And so, look him up, find him. He gets messages all the time from people just out of nowhere. And so if you know somebody that's going through this, he would love to talk to you. So find him on social media.
Absolutely.
Or
anytime.
Yeah, email me and I'll get you connected with Albert as well. So, anyway, well, man, you got big plans for New Year's Eve now?
Yeah, I got about 20 more minutes. I got to be in bed. It's 8:30 is my bedtime.
Me too. All right, man. Well, I appreciate you, brother. So tell Julie and the girls we said hi, and maybe we'll do this again sometime. Thanks for coming on here and doing it.
Hey, man, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
All right, man. We'll talk to you later.
Okay, bye.
Okay. All right, bye. All right, guys. Thanks for joining in tonight. What a great time. So coming up, I just appreciate Albert a lot. And you heard me say that several times. I just believe that there's so much that I was able to learn from him. And so in the comments, if you missed this, check out chrisworkbeatcancer.com. That's a big one. You can go to my YouTube channel. And I actually made a video of myself making the juice that Albert was alluding to, and Albert taught me how to make. And so, and he got that from Chris Work as well. So you can check that out. And I think there's so much good there. So share this with somebody and maybe re-listen to it. But we do believe that the hope that we have as we go into a new year, 2024, hard to believe. It just feels like yesterday I was graduating in 1987. I know it's hard to believe, but man, it goes by so fast. But faith is such a big deal in our lives. And so make sure that you, find those answers out for yourself as well. So our guest coming up, man, listen, I've got tons of people coming up. There's a guy named Clay Drake that's going to be on here, and he's from Colorado, and he has multiple myeloma, and we're going to talk to him and Chad Stevenson. They've been through a crazy journey with their child, Harper, and Pam Nelson, and Kim Dillard, Brian Smith, Sarah and Cole, a boy that had osteosarcoma. We got all of them. So I wrote these down today because they're coming up in January as we come into the new year, and we're going to have a lot of different people on here. And I'm going to have my wife on here pretty soon, and we're going to talk about caregivers and really go into that as well. So man, you guys have a wonderful New Year's Eve if you're watching this live. And if not, and you're watching it later, I hope that you had a great New Year's. Happy New Year to you. Again, if you want to be a part of our journey, I'm going to put this on here at the bottom, but you can help us make these things happen, these trips happen. And we'd love to have your support. So we're going to get on different ways that you can support us, and not just us. It's not about us. It's about supporting the stem cell transplant trips. And I talked to Clay Drake about this today, and he loved the idea, and the other people that have had stem cell transplants love the idea. It's a big vision, but we're just going to start here locally and do what we can with the people around us, and then wherever it goes from there, it goes from there. So, but you can help us. We're heading out tomorrow on our trip, and so we would love your support as we take our anniversary trip with our family, and we'd love to have you help us there as well. So you can check that out at the bottom. Again, email us if you have questions. Go to fightlikeafreak.com, subscribe to the email. We'll keep you updated. And my YouTube channel, you can check that out. It's Fight Like a Freak. If you'll search for it on YouTube, you can subscribe to that as well. And you can catch these videos and then share them with other people as well. We're going to keep posting them and keep moving forward. This is episode 4, and we'll have episode 5 real soon. So, all right, I think that's it for the night. I'm going to play my little video one more time for you guys that are watching and play the end of this song. Happy New Year. God bless you guys. Love you. And thanks for being a part of this with us. So let's play this.
In this